Hey everybody, a video here for you today. Now I made a video on Tanis in Egypt about a year and a half ago, but I think it is important to make another one on Tanis because I did not include some of the more important things about the history of Tanis. But here we see it. It is in the northeastern delta, Nile Delta area, and excavations have been done in ancient Tanis, but they are kind of few and far between. But I'm going to take you in and show you what some of it looks like here. But this was the capital of the Hyksos people who lived here about 3,800 years ago. And these, I believe, were the people, or it's a good possibility, these were the people who ended up going north and becoming or joining the people that would become the Hebrews and wrote the Bible. And one of the things I found very interesting about this site was, I believe in Greek it is called, in ancient times it was called Avaris, and in Hebrew this ancient site is called Zoan. So did the writers of the Bible just change it to Zion in the Bible and move its location to Jerusalem when they left Egypt and they were kicked out or expelled from Egypt about 3,700 years ago? And I believe this very well could be the foundation of the Exodus story. This happened at a time of darkness and calamity and the Nile turning red and a whole bunch of different things resulting from the eruption of Santorini in the Aegean. Egypt caught the full brunt of the effects of that disaster, and this happened at the same time the Hyksos were leaving, and I believe this is the origin of the whole biblical plagues in the Exodus story. Now, one thing I found on both the site here is there was infrared imaging done, and I just want to show you that real quick here. And I did a little comparison in this area and what showed up on infrared imaging. I just want to show you that real quick. And here's that comparison I did. I just took an image from Google Earth from pretty much the same area. I didn't match it up exactly, but you can see here what we see on Google Earth is pretty much nothing, and this infrared image, a city appears. This was a huge ancient city, and it just shows what lies beneath the sand and soil in Egypt is really unknown until you do this imaging. And I think there are great secrets left in Egypt to be found, but I just wanted to show you this. I think this is a very cool depiction of what lies beneath and what is unknown about ancient Egypt. So I really like that infrared imaging. It shows what's underneath the ground here and what was ancient Tanis. This was the capital of the Hyksos people, and you know, Jerusalem, from what I have read and what I have learned, at the time of Solomon and David was nothing more than a big village or a town, and that it housed kings and armies and citadels and temples. Seems like kind of a weird story. And but I'm going to play a clip from Red Ice Radio. This is Ralph Ellis talking about the Hyksos and Tanis, and I'm going to play that clip for you right now.
Chance, off you go. Go and find the evidence, you know, of our great history. Sure. And so off they went. And much to their annoyance, they can't find it. So, and they've gone quite the other way. You know, Finkelstein has said that Jerusalem was only a village in this era. We're talking about 950, 1000 BC, something of that nature, for the United Monarchy. And Jerusalem was only a village. So we have no evidence of the palaces, we have no evidence of the city, and we have no written or scribal evidence that they ever existed. Nobody can find a monument with, you know, King David did this on it. Yeah. King Solomon did that, you know. They don't exist. So how can this be? Well, you've only got two options. One is that the naysayers are correct, and this is all mythology. Someone made it all up. Kings do not exist. Well, that's one possibility. But the other possibility is we're looking in the wrong place. And so I've just been through, 3 books already that were looking at the history of the Israelites and putting the history of the Israelites back into Egypt. So what's the obvious thing to do? Well, the obvious thing to do is put the history of King David and King Solomon back into Egypt. And see if you can find it there. Maybe we're looking in the wrong location. So we've got the right date, the right region, but we're looking in the wrong location. And I found something that was very interesting. The first thing I found was that we're looking for, say, King David. You're not going to find King David, otherwise someone would have found that name somewhere. So what I started looking for is attributes. And the main attributes for King David were the city and the star. The city of David and the star of David. So I started looking for those attributes, and I went down into the pharaonic history of Lower Egypt, what used to be the Hyksos land. And there happened to be a pharaoh, Pasibakahayanut, or Susens they call him in the Greek. And Pasibakahayanut was known for the star and the city. That's what his name means. My star that rises in my city. Bit strange that, isn't it? Okay, so here we have a pharaoh, a king of Egypt, who was known for a star and a city. And of course, these kings, these monarchs, actually became quite influential, not only in Lower Egypt, but also in Upper Egypt, and also in Syria and Palestine. So they were actually king of Palestine, king of Israel, but of course he didn't live in Jerusalem in Israel. He actually lived, of course, in Lower Egypt. He lived in Tanis. And it so happened, of course, that Tanis has the same name as Jerusalem. Jerusalem was known as Zion. That's why we have the Zionists looking for the homeland. But the name of Tanis in the Bible is Zoan. It's got the same name. So there's a lot of room for confusion.
So that was Ralph Ellis on Red Ice Radio. I really like Ralph Ellis's work. I don't agree with him on everything he says, but I really like the direction he goes with what he researches. So that is a brief story and a look at Tanis, an ancient Tanis. You've heard about this from Raiders of the Lost Ark. This is where Indiana Jones was searching. And there's a story of a pharaoh from, I believe, the 21st dynasty, and his name was Shishak. And there is a Shishak in the Bible, and this is the same pharaoh. And he went up and supposedly raided Solomon's temple in Jerusalem and took back a bunch of valuable artifacts to this area. And that is the basis of why Steven Spielberg chose the site for Indiana Jones to search. There was an actual search going on right at the start of World War II when the tombs of Susenes and another pharaoh were discovered by Pierre Montet, and that is another story that relates it to Indiana Jones. But the real story here is whether you're going to believe the story of the people who wrote the Bible, of their capital being Zion, which supposedly was in Jerusalem, which was nothing more than a big village or town at this time, and really couldn't supported armies and citadels and temples. Or do you believe the origin of the Bible, or the people who wrote the Bible, came from Zoan? Boy, they just changed one letter. They're pretty sneaky. And we have an actual city that is underneath the ground here at Tanis. And that was the home of the Hyksos people. They were expelled from Egypt at a time of great disaster, the eruption of Santorini. The Nile turned red. There was great darkness. Hailstones fell. All the cattle died. They went north. They migrated up into Canaan. and they wrote a story using a narrative of the kings from their old homeland, and we call that the Old Testament. Hope you thought this was interesting. Have a nice day.